Daniel Andrews' bid to implement permanent control intensifies. That's right. So what exactly are we talking about here? Here in the state of Victoria, and I'm sure there are other proposals for legislation like this, perhaps throughout the country and most definitely around the world, Daniel Andrews is seeking I suppose you could call it like a permanent state of emergency, whereby the government of the day will retain the executive power to, on a whim, based on their so-called advice, right? Advice from experts or people that are handpicked by the government or something like that. The authority to shut the city down, impose travel restrictions, social distancing, mask mandates, injection mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. So this is particularly concerning, okay? It's already been tabled in Parliament. So we're going to be calling on the Victorian public to put pressure on some key crossbenchers in the Legislative Council. Now, these members in the upper house, they've let us down multiple times before. We think about the extension to the state of emergency. So we think to ourselves, our concerns are falling on deaf ears. Well, that very well may be the case, but what is also the case is that there is nothing to lose by at least trying, and I think that we should at least try. You see, with the proposal for this permanent pandemic legislation, Daniel Andrews is seeking to remove many of the functions of the Chief Health Officer. Okay? Now, I know that a lot of us don't give Brett Sutton credit for much at all, or anything at all, but what this shows is that Daniel Andrews is so blatant that he is actually trying to assume the power of a so-called Chief Health Officer to enable him to have the authority to shut the state down and to impose these freedom-destroying policies. That's right. In addition to that, the Chief Health Officer will no longer be needed under this proposal to sign off on the so-called health directions. That's right. That role will be handballed to the health minister. Okay, so you've got a premier, you've got a health minister. As far as I'm aware, neither of the two have a background in health. Okay, they appear to me to be more like salespeople for the big pharmaceutical corporations, and they appear to me to be only interested in assuming more and more power. I say they're drunk on power, and enough is never enough. That's right. As the old saying goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and without any shadow of a doubt, that's what we're witnessing in Victoria. The power of which Daniel Andrews has fraudulently, I got there in the end, assumed, he's not going to give it up. All right, so let's take a little bit of a look at this, shall we? Let's take a little bit of a look. So what do we have here under this proposal? This freedom-destroying proposal that is a disgrace to the Australians that came before us. We have a permanent state of emergency, all right? So essentially, Daniel Andrews doesn't need a show anymore. Just, all right, I'm going to lock you down. I'm going to stop you from going here, going there. Premier granted power to declare state of emergency, health minister to sign off on directions. Chief health officer not needed, essentially. Up to 2 years jail time and a $90,000 fine for offenders, all right? So people the government considers to be dangerous or maybe likely to spread the virus, right? To spread the virus that has an infection fatality rate of, do you remember what it is? It's extremely, extremely small. That's right. That's right. They want you to believe it's for your health and safety, yet they will not address the true mortality rate of this virus, because if they did, they would lose the ability to instill fear in the hearts of the population, and fear is an integral ingredient to this corrupt government maintaining control over the population. So fear must be pushed at every angle. Businesses to face up to a $455,000 fine. Okay, so who may these penalties apply to? Maybe protest organisers, maybe people attending protests, who knows? Maybe somebody who met with too many people in a park, maybe a group of people that met in a park, but they had not been double injected. The terminology is very broad. There is tremendous scope for abuse. And this is most definitely a consolidation of power that government should never hold in their hands. The solution to health and well-being does not rest in the government. It rests in we as Australians, we as individuals, right? You don't need to be a doctor to understand the benefits of sunlight, keeping a healthy diet, exercising, and taking precautionary measures to ensure that we're safe. We don't need the government doing this for us. What this legislation tells me is that the government is saying a few things. First of all, what they're saying is that Victorians are absolutely stupid and will be willing to stand by and do nothing whilst the government tramples all over our rights. And it also says that the government is seeking to take a position of the sole provider of health and safety, okay? I mean, what an absolute disgrace. Let me ask you a question. When we think about the biggest atrocities that have been committed throughout the world, throughout humanity, were they committed by civilian groups or were they committed by governments? They've always been committed by governments, and they always will continue to be committed by governments. We see the inception of various authoritarian takeovers throughout the world, and they all seem to have something in common. The stripping away of citizens' rights is almost always done under the guise of safety or health, or there's some type of threat that needs to be neutralized. In this case, it's the threat of a deadly virus that has a survival rate of well and truly beyond 99%. Anyway, so what does this all come down to for us Victorians? It really all comes down to these four people. That's right. These four members of the Legislative Council. That's right. Former Labor politician Adam Somyurek. That's right. Of course, he was kind of forced to leave Labor after the whole branch stacking thing. He seems to like speaking up on Twitter. It seems like he has something to say. But Adam, what this really comes down to is how you vote. Okay? You have proclaimed that you'd like to do the right thing by the Victorian people. So we are calling on you to do the right thing and to oppose this assault, this legislation that you know will end freedom as we know it. We see Samantha Ratnam from the Greens, Andy Medic, and of course, Fiona Patten. Okay, so it really all comes down to these four crossbenchers and how they choose to use their vote. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Now, they've all let us down in the past. So I'm not holding out hope on any single one of those individuals. Okay? But there is something that you can do, because doing something is absolutely better than doing nothing. Who here agrees with that? Okay, so what do we have here? What am I showing you? This is from Reignite Democracy Australia. I've put the link in the description. It says here, say no to permanent pandemic legislation. What you can do is what you can do to immediately protect Victorians' rights. Okay, so the link is in the description. It says here, click here for the Reignite Democracy contact list, and you can send emails just to these four crossbenchers in question. Okay, this is not a guaranteed solution. I would say the odds are heavily stacked against us, but it is at least worth a try. If you'd like me to forward you this link from Reignite Democracy so you can gain access to these people, or you can just look them up online. They're not hard to find. You can just go to mcjreport.com/join, put your email address in, and I'll send this document out to you. It also contains a draft letter. If you're not sure exactly what you'd like to write, you can get some ideas from that. Okay, so that just about wraps this segment for the show up. I mean, my honest belief is that should this legislation go through, Victoria as we knew it will never exist again. The government would have assumed powers to the likes of which they've never held before. Individual rights won't matter. Human rights won't matter. Informed consent will be a thing of the past. The new normal will be lockdowns, gathering limits, and the long-term imprisonment of people who express dissent. That's right. This is truly the beginning of a terrible time in Victoria. But at the end of the day, this is our home, and we need to do what we can to defend it.